December 9th, 2013. We don't have a public hearing, so we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance and a silent prayer. I would ask if everyone would please keep in their prayers this evening Alderman Bailey and her family. She lost her brother at the end of last week, and the funeral was today.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alderman Capocci. Here. Alderman Bagnall. Here. Alderman Napoli. Here. Alderman Phelan. Alderman Bernelli. Here. Alderman Mulcahy. Here. Alderman Hadley. Here. Alderman Lopez. Here. Alderman Chigetti. Here. Alderman Padula.
Present.
Alderman Giacomo. Here. Alderwoman Cummings.
Here.
Alderman Hussein.
Here.
Alderman DePillo. Here. Alderman Pernaruski.
Here.
14 present, 1 absent.
We have a quorum. Before we get to the presentation, which is the next item on the agenda, there's obviously been an awful lot of discussion over the last week or so about the rules. And so at this point, I would entertain a motion that this board amend the existing rules by reverting back to those rules that were in effect in the 2011 and 2013 term.
So moved. Second.
Motion having been made and seconded, is there any discussion? Alderman Padula.
Thank you, Mr. President. This news came as a shock to me and the members of the minority tonight, but I am glad that the 2011-2013 rules will be in effect for the upcoming term. As you know, we had emails going back and forth personally between you and myself, and there was a lot of discussion, as you said, about these rules. Not only did the proposed rules limit the speaking ability of the public, but it also limited the ability of us as a board to address each other and to produce a debate on an issue, any issue, that was full and complete. For that reason, I'm glad that the rules are going to be put back. I think it's the only sane thing to do. And again, I'm happy that it's going to be the case. Thank you.
Further discussion? Alderman Giacomo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Through you. First of all, Mr. President, I speak tonight to thank you and the majority side for reverting the rules back to the rules that governed the previous term. But I still have a few things that I think need to be addressed and set before this board, because I think it's important for all of us to consider these things. Now, it's been said recently by members of the majority that the purpose of those rules that were proposed a week ago were to speed up meetings, to prevent repetitiveness of arguments, to force members to face leadership before they get too wacky and begin to play for the cameras. I must say it was disappointing to hear that from the majority side, that the majority side would think so little of both us and the minority as well as the public to propose those rules. It was disappointing because instead of discussing changes to encourage debate and participation, we were discussing proposed rule changes that were based on a fear of ideas and, quite frankly, what some of us felt was a disdain for the Waterbury resident. To be honest, sometimes I'm not quite sure why the majority side had felt that those rules were going to be necessary. As we all know, the majority side has 9 votes, and no matter how foolish a proposal or the accompanying remarks, those 9 votes usually carry the day. It should be clear to any member of this board who has versed themselves in the parliamentary procedures contained within Robert's Rules of Order that the mechanisms to achieve what the majority had claimed to want to achieve with those proposed rules already exist. To be sure, Robert's Rules provides the President and the majority side with the ability to limit or cut off debate, refocus discussion, and generally move along the deliberations of issues at whatever pace is desired. So one is forced to ask, why was there such preoccupation with the volume, verbiage, and drama that may sometimes be a byproduct of arguments from both the public as well as the minority side for or against an issue? Are those qualities that the majority side believes to be indicative of perceived victory in a debate? To quote Christopher Collison, a professor at philosophy at the University of South Carolina, in his October 9, 2009 article entitled, "What is Public Discourse?" If citizens and politicians believe that victory is to the loudest or the most dramatic, then loud and dramatic they will be. To put it another way, if the majority desired to place limits on debate in order to curb what they felt were wacky plays to the camera, thereby placing unwarranted and unneeded focus on these qualities, then it stands to reason that the public and the minority side may likely see fit to increase those qualities in the short time we are allowed to speak, since it could be reasonably said that the majority has tacitly deemed those qualities to be the most important due to their focus on them via those proposed rules. The majority has also said that those proposed rules were trying to curb drama and volume, but also unwanted and in their minds repetitive debate. Now, if the majority feels that the legitimate debate of issues before this board is repetitive, tedious, and redundant, I would return to Professor Collison, who further said that, in contrast to the volume and drama of which the majority seem to be so concerned, public discourse is often difficult, deliberative, and slow. Mr. President, speech should not be the goal of this board, nor should the curtailing of dialogue, pro or con, on the part of the public or the minority. Rather, the goals of this board should be the full and fair consideration of policies and proposals offered to this board, so that the people have a clear and full understanding of them, however long and loud that consideration should become. I believe this is a very important distinction, Mr. President, one that I would be remiss not to make here at the beginning of our term. I often not only hear but participate in conversations concerning the goals of the minority members of this body. It seems to me that the feelings of the majority over the last several years was that the minority simply desired to obstruct the goals of whatever administration was and is in power. 2 years ago, the newly elected Republican minority vowed not to be obstructionists, and I believe we lived up to that vow. However, the majority should realize that the opposite of obstruction is not simply polite acquiescence to the whims of the majority, but rather it is fierce, reasoned, and loyal opposition. To paraphrase former House Speaker Tip O'Neill in remarks he made to his staff, outlining his expectations for them after Ronald Reagan's landslide victory in 1980, we are going to oppose, we're going to fight tooth and nail, but we will not obstruct. I firmly believe that is the job of the minority, to oppose, to question and debate, so that the true nature of policies and proposals can be revealed, for good or for ill. After all, real transparency in government does not come in the form of daily schedules of ribbon cuttings and self-congratulatory press releases, but in the consistent and sometimes heated back and forth of legislative bodies such as the one to which we currently belong. Mr. President, the matters that come before this board are of tremendous public importance and therefore must be discussed in public. That this discussion sometimes takes the form of a public argument should not be something that troubles this board, as long as the discussions are allowed to be conducted fully and freely. I believe it is the least we can do for the people that have placed us in these most important positions, and I applaud the majority side for agreeing with that, and for agreeing that we should revert back to the rules that carried us through the last term. Thank you, Mr. President.